Hey everybody, it's Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
Hi.
And you're watching episode 168 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. What's on the docket today, Victoria?
So we're gonna be talking about in a Sun-Scorched Land Part 2
Yep,
and Malachi's Message Part 2.
yep. And
And
predictions for album 67,
okay.
because it starts very soon. So, episode 863, In a Sun-Scorched Land, Part 2, written by Kathy Buchanan, was the AIOO episode for February this year. What happens in this episode, Victoria?
So I can't remember anyone's names, but
Joseph and Omer and Amina.
okay. So Joseph and Omer are in the barn and they don't get trapped there. And they meet a girl named Amina. They all travel together. Eventually, Omer gets sick and dies. And Joseph and what was her name? Amina?
Yeah.
They find a sanctuary place where a bunch of other people who escaped their villages are.
Refugee camp.
And yeah, and Joseph finds his family. And then it goes back to present day. And Matthew finds out that Joseph isn't a janitor and he's a doctor. And he took up the interest in becoming a doctor because of Omer. And he's actually Lucia's doctor too. And he's a huge troll. And yeah, that's it. He's gonna go to the hospital with Matthew. Matthew's gonna meet his kid. I am so glad he's not the janitor, because reading the Young Whit book, I was just like, oh, another janitor. And then he wasn't a janitor. I was like, oh, thank God. It's nothing against janitors. It's just, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, the crazy, after all the stuff that he went through, I would hope that he got, not that, the janitorial arts are not, fulfilling and stuff, but I want him to, go on to, be able to do something big after all of that, a place where he has the opportunity to, share his story with people. And it was a good plot twist. Yeah, so it
turns out he's just a nice guy who likes to clean up spills after he makes mess, which I respect that.
The very best kind of person.
Yeah.
I was even exceptionally, much more than usual, grateful for the previously on this episode, because we recorded part 1 in April.
I actually listened to part 1 again before I listened to part 2. I really liked the characters a lot. I liked their dynamic.
As the characters go through, and Omer kind of has this teaching role throughout the episodes where he's encouraging Joseph and pointing out these things that God's doing, and the biblical story and parallels that we keep coming back to over and over and over is the story of Moses. And I like the subtle parallel when Joseph is like, God's not looking after us, I don't know what's going on, and he hits the log with his crutch and it cracks open and they find the termites inside, like Moses striking this stone with water, it cracks open and water pours out for the Israelites.
Is Omer also Moses then? Because he never got to see the refugee camp.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of everyone's Moses. But
maybe Moses is the friends we made along the way.
Evidently. Yeah, and then Omer dies, which is really sad. Dead kid stories are always
I didn't think he was
really
actually going to die.
Hearing a kid in that much pain is awful, and I
was very upset.
It's very sad.
I saw Toy Story 4 this week, and right before it started, there were so many trailers. One of the trailers was a dog movie, because there's a billion dog movies coming out every single year now.
A Dog's Purpose,
and it was about a dog that wants to be a race car driver, but it wasn't Air Bud. It was just supposed to be taken seriously.
Okay.
No, it was a drama. It's because his owner's a race car driver, so the dog is a fan of race cars.
As you do.
the guy who owns him marries Amanda Seyfried or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's just like showing them throughout their entire life and stuff as they get older, and his owner gets married and has kids, and he gets in a race car accident and stuff because they show the entire movie in trailers nowadays.
Yeah,
And then
evidently.
it's like intermittently cutting through like different title card things, and one of the title cards was brought to you by the people who made Marley and Me, and I screamed no in the theater really loud.
Well, I think that was because I was just listening recently in the last couple of weeks to the Mibibams around the release of A Dog's Purpose, which I believe was also
Yeah.
made by the people who made Marley and Me.
Yeah, so I just yelled no.
Which is really just, when it
loudly.
comes down to it, a film about a dog dying over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's like we wanted to do it more than just once.
Yeah.
So
How can we
now we get to see a dog
expand?
dying in a race car. They're coming up with new ways to make you cry.
Yeah. So Amina and Joseph make it to the refugee camp. Joseph finds his sister and his mother. They survived. And then we cut back to Joseph talking to Matthew. And Matthew's like, yeah, I get it. You went through like all this incredible stuff, and the stuff I'm going through is nothing. Like, I'm sorry for complaining after everything you went through. I always really like when stories acknowledge, like, suffering is not a competition. And like, yes, Joseph went through these horrific things, but everyone's struggles and challenges are valid, and you don't need to feel like the things you're going through are invalidated just because other things.
Suffering game. Taco Magnus. Taco losing his looks. Magnus validating Taco losing his looks.
Oh.
Me weeping on the ground.
It's a good scene. Travis is a good human being. Yeah, and then we have that great plot twist at the end where it turns out that Joseph was the surgeon, which was a great piece of like audio deception with the storytelling, because he never pretended to be the janitor. In fact, he didn't even realize until the end that Matthew thought he was the janitor.
I just wanted to be like,
So
he
was
was actually wearing this really nice suit the whole time or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Matthew's like, wait, you're not the janitor? And Joseph's like,
he's actually wearing a lab coat and a stethoscope around his neck. Matthew's just very unobservant.
his name tag says, your grandma's doctor.
It was a great piece of assumptive narration.
To be fair, Matthew didn't get much sleep the night before. And that's why he did bad on the presentation.
That's true.
Less sleep makes you less observant.
That's true. You are the sleep expert. You are the somnologist of the
I'm
two
the
of us.
sleep expert, and that's why I got 51% in that class.
That's a pass.
I graduated from
So we get the video documentary. There's a guy from a company that creates small water filters in homes in water insecure areas. And so he's showing like, look at all this dirty water I have, and like dirt and worms and stuff. And then,
look at all this dirty water.
yeah, and then pour it through a filter, and then I'll drink it. And he talks about how he grew up in a refugee camp in Somalia and knew like frequent lack of access to safe drinking water. And now he's installed water filters into thousands of homes in Africa and other water insecure areas. So that's cool. And then we get a montage of Bob is like, he's trekking through the woods, through the wilderness.
Is it a green screen?
No, it's
Okay.
just outside in Colorado Springs. And he's like, oh, after like 18 different shots of him walking, he's like, I'm lost, which is funny. I knew that was where it was going to go, which is why I was so bemused that in about 20% of the shots, they had to like focus really tightly on the foreground because you could definitely see houses in the background. There was one where it was like in a snowy field, but you could see in the front like foot of the foreground, he was standing on like paved concrete. He's just really bad with directions.
He might not know that neighborhood. That's me.
He might not. So he runs into a survival skill training lady, and she talks about how to survive.
Wow, that was a really great coincidence.
It was,
God
yeah.
provides.
About how to survive if you get lost in the wilderness. I actually learned a few interesting new survival techniques. The most interesting being that if you're in a really hot area and you can't find safe water, you want to bring a bunch of Ziploc bags with you, and if you stick one over some living leafy foliage and seal it as much as you can, then it'll collect all the condensation from the transpiration of the leaves or the needles as the sun beats down on it, which I'd never thought before. And a bag will probably only collect a few drops of water a day, so ideally you have multiple bags so that you could actually survive off of that amount of water. But I'd never heard of or thought about harvesting transpiration for drinking water before, so I thought that was cool.
No, it's hot.
And that's about it that I got for that.
I don't really have that much to say. I really like the dynamic between all the kids. I didn't see Omar dying coming. I liked the way that what's her face
Amina
figured out that like who Joseph's sister was at the end.
Mm-hmm.
She lost her doll.
I was just so impressed with Omer and his like medical knowledge of all these things on top of his like really good like scriptural knowledge.
Yeah.
And he was just like throwing it all down.
And then they're like, he's like fixing everyone. He's an awesome doctor. And there's like, and then Omer got sick and started dying. I'm like, he's the doctor. He has to fix himself now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like that's a part of it is the frustration of how preventable waterborne illnesses are. And I think that's kind of like a point to be made about it, that even with all that knowledge, like without access to physical materials, you know, there's not much that you can do.
I like how much they talked about the water. Although since that like ties into the charity, apparently that makes...
It doesn't.
Oh, never mind.
He was just in the dock. That's not the charity of the month.
Well, since they tied him into it, that makes sense why they were talking about it so much. I like the fact that Joseph admits to Matthew that he didn't have any idea what was wrong with Omar and could only guess. Omer.
Yeah, I felt like I saw it coming that Omer had to die, even though it was like right at the very end of their journey, not just because of the Moses thing, but because he like knew so much about everything that just in terms of the general like hero's journey, that it's like, oh, the like passing of the mentor or whatever that stage is called is, you know,
something
requisite
like
storytelling. Like the
Actually,
death of Obi-Wan.
It's the anti-hero's cradle.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get it?
No.
It's the Kingdom Hearts story.
Well, I don't remember that one very well, Victoria.
That's Roxas's. That's Days. The anti-hero's cradle. Then you got the dream drop bucket.
Yeah.
Where the dream drop distance plot goes. The garbage. The data cube.
Yeah.
And then Kingdom Hearts 3.
So, did you have anything you wanted to say about the music? You commented on it.
Before yeah. Did I text you about that?
Something. Some form of communication was passed.
The music in this, in like both part 1 and part 2, is some of the best Odyssey music I've ever heard.
Yeah, they've in the last couple of years, they've definitely ramped up the frequency of getting Jared DePascal to compose for episodes. He was
really good.
Always highly cinematic.
It was so good. Just like literally every single note, even like really small riffs or like music just playing in the background. And it was just, that's so good. And then the transitional music comes in and I'm screaming. And speaking of transitions, and I also mentioned very nice suits earlier, I have a couple things to say about Malachi's message when you're ready, because I don't really have anything else.
And his transition lenses that he wears. Yeah, I don't have that much to say about this episode.
I think they were really, really good and really well paced. And I kind of forgot what the first part was about until I started listening to it. And then the second I remembered and it clicked what the episode was about, I got so hyped because I really, really liked part 1. And then I was just like, oh, I forgot about this. I finally get to find out what happens. And yeah.
I think I like how small the scale of the story is, I guess, in a way. Like, despite the fact that it's set against this kind of grandiose backdrop of, like, there's this like false militia that's recruiting people to stop the bad guys, but they actually are the bad guys. Like there's a lot of like political turmoil, and they like uncover the secret and stuff like that. But the story isn't about them like exposing huge like political or paramilitary operations or anything like that. At the end of this day, it's like a homeward bound with people kind of
Yeah.
story. So I like
I
the fact that despite the fact that it felt like it had the potential to be more obvious, I guess, like grandiose kind of story, that it was a much more character focused thing. And the second part was basically 100% character focused, which is nice.
I like
It makes sense for
respect
Kathy writing this kind of story that we would get
stories.
that.
Yeah. I respect stories that like kind of drop a lot of the stuff because the characters have no power in what's going on
Hmm.
and like they're not going to be able to affect it. Like I just read a book a little while ago. I actually didn't really like it and it took me like a while to finish. But it had like this entire like
It was called Young Wit,
scheme
book one.
going on in the background and the characters basically like none of them had any power in what was going on and it didn't even end up being the main conflict of the book anymore anyway and they
Hmm.
just kind of dropped it partway through it because like other characters just off page just dealt with it and I was like yeah that kind of makes sense really anticlimactic and disappointing and stuff but here I think it was a lot better because yeah, it's a character driven story. It's about what happens to them. They obviously like escaped those guys so they don't have to worry about them. They like the three of them aren't going to be able to take on all the rest of them.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more my brain is like getting into like thinking about it analytically. And yeah, it is interesting because I feel like with the setup that we started with, a lot of stories will look at like, and this is very typical, especially in like a fantasy setting, that we get like, oh, here is this really big overarching evil, like corporate, governmental, military, whatever power structure, and here you are, a normal person, and you have to start out as normal so that the audience can feel that you're a surrogate for them. And then, but you have to overcome this evil. You don't have the power to do that. And so the story has to foist some kind of chosenness onto you that elevates you from starting as normal to elevate you to have magical powers, or you win a golden ticket in a chocolate bar, or something like that that gives you sudden access as an inciting incident to a greater power in some way so that you can overcome the evil that's been set up at the beginning. Um, and it can be kind of exhausting, the predictability of that sometimes, and the idea that, like, normal people can be heroes, but only as long as they're normal people, only until, like, some great power is bestowed upon them. And I like the stories that can be like, you know what, there are things sometimes, and there's nothing I can do about that. I'm just going to continue to be me, because most people in real life also continue to be them and go on through life. And you're
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily going to thwart every monumental thing that you brush up against. And your life is more about you and going through the things that you go through as you go through your life than it is about all the things that are ancillary to your existence as you pass through it. So I like that. Good job, Kathy.
Yeah, it's a lot more realistic and I
Yeah.
like it. It's also like there's that I see in stories sometimes that I like really like and respect and I've also seen this in like I think basically only like one story where you think the character that you're reading as is the main character
Hmm.
and then at the end of the story you find out the real character who everyone else was after is like the main character's best friend and they all start and they're like no we were actually like trying to get to her through you
Hmm.
just interpreted it as we thought you were the more important one but you're really not
Yeah.
it's the other person
Like, the
and
what's the song called? Like, you're so vain, you probably think this song is about you.
yeah yeah so not that I took any inspiration of that kind of idea for anything at all.
Um, okay. Do you have any final thoughts on the episode?
I really enjoyed it. The music was great. The writing was tight. The characters were good. I liked the plot twist at the end. That's basically all the stuff. Also, the thing you said about like everyone's conflicts being important was just like I was listening and then I was like, no, I'm saying, like, everyone goes through their own struggles. And I was listening, I was like, ah, my heart. And yeah, I almost cried when Omar died. I was, like, at work listening to this while working. So that always looks good. Like that time I was crying 1 week ago while listening to Amnesty because I heard Clint and I thought something else was going on than what was actually going on.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Oh, have you listened to the new episode from today?
I've listened to the first 45 seconds of it.
Okay.
So, I think that's the end of this episode. What's your rating for this episode, Victoria?
5. I thought it was really good. 5 out of 5.
I'm going to give it 4.5. Yeah.
Malachi's message. I have a joke about Malachi's message. I don't want to forget it, so we need to start it now.
Okay, well, we'll stop this recording then so that you can do that. Okay, let's talk about part 2 of Malachi's message. Episode 407 written by Paul McCusker.
I got so excited because I thought of it while driving to work today.
Yes,
and I was like, I want to
transitions.
I want to test. I want to I want to tell Devin it so bad because he's gonna laugh really hard. But like, I want to see his reaction on camera. Okay, so in this episode, Jason comes into this 3-parter. He is the best thing about this 3-parter, I would argue. And so, yeah, he's being a sassy self. He is still in the stage of his life, which he goes to every 2 episodes, basically, where he wants to go back to the agency, but he doesn't want to go back to the agency because he's a tsundere idiot.
Yeah.
And,
I love in the episode where it's like, oh, Jason's like, it's like, well, do you want to go back to the agency? And Jason's like, I really don't. I'm like, but do you? Yeah,
exactly. Do you? He's like, oh, I miss my life so much. He's like, do you want to go back? No! Anyway, so, Katrina and Eugene are like at each other's throats because of Armitage and stuff. Back when Armitage was alive.
And hashtag TBT.
Yeah, Throwback Thursday when your dad wasn't dead. And
when your dad wasn't medically assassinated.
That too. And Jack and Joanne are having like
a rare spat.
Yeah, trying to figure out like what to do with the whole missionary thing, and Jack doesn't want Joanne to go back. I like that Jack and Joanne had like big plans for like traveling together, and then they realized like, and then 2 episodes later they were just like, yeah, we didn't think this through, because like that's the most real thing right there. That's so relatable. Like me when I said I was going to finish EOAT last year, but on a very different scale of importance. Very different,
yes. Yeah, this is much more important.
Yeah. Tom finds Timmy's journal, and it has all the Fletcher's Rebellion stuff in it. Yeah. It made me remember how much I love
But that's a story for another time.
That's a story for another time. Do you think they had the Fletcher stuff planned out?
I mean, it's only 2 albums from now. So maybe it wasn't that hard to retrofit it, clearly. Yeah, but I mean, if they hadn't done this, they could have shoehorned it in somewhere else, somehow else. It just turned out this was a much nicer, like, kind of core canon tied way than, like, inventing some random kid.
I mean, they've never done that before, for goodness sake. And Malachi comes to see everyone. It's just like, man, it's so inspirational. We're all just going to be so inspired. I hope I can be inspired to create something big and impactful and meaningful. And I'm just sitting in my car laughing and cackling uncontrollably because I'm like, boy, you had your chance. You squandered it. We've talked about the transmuter so much. I realized also
It's funny because the transmuter
That's
gets
why
talked
I thought
out.
we'd already done Malachi's message, because we talked about the transmuter and Jason on the dock so much that
It's funny.
Jason's in his prime in this set of albums.
It's funny that the transmuter only gets talked about because of Malachi's message, not because of the episode in which it exists.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, man, maybe we should do that episode one day. It's a Jared episode.
We
only
even assume that the transmuter is what the inspiration is for, because it's the next thing that he creates that we know of.
Yeah, that's why we assume it, because we're right.
Yeah.
Also, it's a lot funnier this way.
Yes.
The
only thing that would be funnier would be if it was like the blender that he invented that blends different stuff.
The Tamika immediately broke.
Yeah.
Remember when the transmuter was mentioned a couple albums ago and we lost our minds?
Yep.
It was almost on the same importance level to me as Hand Up being mentioned again, only to be immediately brushed off.
No, the thing that I like about the transmuter is how you made me realize, not but a week ago, that apart from the fact that it only shows you the present for that person, that it's basically the Animus from Assassin's Creed. Because
when did you realize this? When were we talking about the transmuter?
You said something about how Whit would like take someone's DNA and then experience stuff from the past of his ancestor. It was probably about talking about the Whit books and experiencing like the past of like Father Lucian or whatever, because the DNA was on like the cloak of Jesus and stuff, the swaddling cloth, and in my mind I was thinking so like, well, the transmuter doesn't like show you, it shows you the present, it doesn't like use the DNA to show you someone's the past. And then I was like, that's literally the only difference between the Animus and the transmuter.
Yeah, because the transmuter's the present and the imagination station is the past, and the remote consequences is the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the transmuter is the only one that works on DNA. Granted, it doesn't actually do that, which just knew stuff about the bully's life and then programmed it in.
He just scammed Jared.
It's just a lie.
As any good character knows how to do.
As
any character worthy of my time knows how to do and is willing to do it.
As far as Jared was aware, what was probably going through his mind when Whit showed him the invention was, oh my gosh, Assassin's Creed is real, Abstergo conspiracies, Templar conspiracies, even though this was like 7 years before Assassin's Creed was created. I was
going to say, Jared being told that this thing runs on someone's DNA only made him 2,000 times more willing to try it out. Just like, imagine all the power I have.
Yeah. Anyways, what else happens in this episode, Victoria?
The most important thing, Jack realizes that Malachi is the man of his dreams.
Yes.
And Connie nods and says, me too.
I feel like we don't get enough Jack, Connie, like good bonding solidarity moments. And this is a peak one for me, always, personally.
Malachi is the man of both their dreams.
Yeah.
It's good.
Was that the joke? That
maybe
it was.
I realized as soon as I said it, I was like, I had a better delivery in my head this morning, and I squandered it.
It's still good. I liked it.
Thank you. I was gonna say, Jack is like, wait a second, Malachi's the man of my dreams, and Connie was gonna be like, me too.
Preach it, brother. Yeah. So speaking, and then Tom decides to create the Timothy Center.
Oh yeah, that too.
And they're like, but we'll have to talk to lightning, thunder crashes in the background, Margaret, Faye, and episode. And I'm like, so, speaking.
Forget about the fact that Tom used to be friends with Margaret.
Yeah,
at one point.
And Whit dated her for a long time and whatnot, but apparently now she's evil because she's a feminist.
I don't think that's where they were.
I guess it's mostly because of like what happened at the end of the election, because they were like, oh, she like tried to break up Whit and Connie, I guess. And she held an emotional grudge like towards Jack and Joanne because of like Whit not marrying her. But they still make it sound like every interaction they're going to have with her is going to be like this tainted and unreasonable person who like won't let us do anything.
I mean, some feminists are huge jerks towards a lot of people,
but not because of that. The way they talk about it in the show, like they literally like say her name like Margaret, like they say her name with literal
they
derision
do say her name that way.
Times.
Twang. What twang?
What twang?
Every time I see a character in literally anything with an accent, like a southern accent, I just hear twang. What twang? Odyssey's ruined me for all other media. That being said, listening to these old episodes in the car this morning felt like wrapping a warm blanket around myself. I was very happy and comforted. It was nice. I just really like hearing Jason from this era of content. It's like him at his best. He has like all the best lines. He has the I smiled fondly. He has the oh, you think you're the angel, Malachi. And then Eugene does it like an episode later.
We're not there yet, but yeah.
Yeah, I know, but he's gonna do it. And then just the only downside is he also sasses Jack too much and is very rude to him, but he grows out of that.
Yeah. So you were saying before, you were talking about how AIO has never ever invented a kid out of thin air just to service the story that they needed to be filled a character role, which is the perfect transition to my first point, which is the opening, and Jason is like, oh, the Imagination Station is stuck on the hide-and-seek program. And I've always thought, like, obviously they chose that because Malachi was making it all angel-themed, but otherwise, it's like, the episode hide-and-seek itself is so standalone and unconnected to anything else in the show, starring kids who were no other episodes. Literally the only reason that they use the hide-and-seek program here is I realized I was thinking about the episode numbers, and I was like,
it's 31.
Well, it's closer than that. There was literally one episode between hide-and-seek and Malachi's Message Part 1.
What was it?
I don't know. But I saw at the top of my note here that this is episode 407, which means Part 1 was episode 406. And I remember, of course, the famous unintentional joke that episode hide-and-seek is episode 404. Which means 405 was the one episode between them. So they literally used it because it was like right there.
I always liked it. I really like hide and seek.
No, it's a good episode, but I just mean it's like Change of Heart level of like isolated in terms of story.
Never compared to Change of Heart in any way whatsoever. I got really confused while listening to that part because Jason's like, it's stuck on the hide and seek program, and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, it's stuck on the scene when Mary's like talking to the angel. And I was like, why the heck is that a part of the hide and seek program? Mary wasn't running away from anything.
Well, no, but it's about God seeking people out, not just people who are running away.
I thought it was about people, who were running away and then being seeked out anyway.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of it. But in general, it's about God seeking people out. And a lot of that was like angels bringing messages to people, which included like, you know, the angel going and talking to Mary. Really, any of them could be in there. I don't remember if that was even in the episode, but obviously in the episode we missed a lot of the program because it was like super glitchy, which is funny when you think
one poor kid literally saw every single anxiety and panic attack inducing part of the program and none of the good parts, basically.
Look at what you did to this kid, Wed. He's got anxiety now. You psychically infused him with anxiety.
Okay, like, I didn't really understand anxiety until I was older. That episode gave me, like, an anxiety attack every time I listened to it as a kid. I was like, I don't know what's up with this episode, but it gets really loud, and a lot of stuff happens, and it's really muddled, and it stresses me out a lot. It makes me cry a little bit sometimes, and I don't know what's going on. And then older me is just like, sweet child, I'm sorry.
It's funny when you think about what the whole thing that happens to the program in hide and seek, and then here Jason's like, the Imagination Station is glitched on the hide and seek program. Malachi must have broken it. Or I'm like, or maybe based on the case study of the 2 times we've seen the hide and seek program, and both times it was horrifically broken, maybe it's the program. Maybe the hide and seek program is just really badly broken. Because every time it runs, it's broken.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot more parsimonious explanation.
Every time it runs, it gets broken. That's what I have in common with the program.
So, Malachi aside, this episode really, and these episodes in general, like we've talked about, I've said this point to death, it really does stand out so much, this three-parter, because there is no other point in this show where so much character plot is advanced simultaneously. We normally have to have our development for characters delivered slowly, part and parceled out one character at a time over the course of albums. There's nothing else that even approaches the density of these episodes. And as Victoria's pointed out previously, as we've all pointed out so many times before, the fact that Whit is the only one who gets the message that is completely meaningless to his character is like the absolute nail in the coffin of how static his existence is.
Yeah, I was about to disagree, but I can't.
It's like, it's undeniable proof of like, this is literally the episode where every character's arc advances, everyone gets a message, and Whit's message is the only one that's completely meaningless.
Whit's character actually degresses. He actually gets dumber because of this episode.
Like, even a degression of character for Whit would be a movement in some direction.
Okay, how about I pose this to you? When it comes to Whit, the real progression isn't for him, it's for us in learning more things about him. So
that's not character development, that's plot development.
The way his character develops is just by getting more depth. So if I make that argument, we finding out that he wrote like Of Men and Angels is character development for him.
No.
Because it comes back up later on. I just really don't like the fact that you made me realize that Whit's a flat and static character. Well,
he's not flat.
He's not flat, he's static. I don't like that he's static.
Neither do I. And it's like,
I guess he's effective anyway. I mean, static characters can be effective. You usually just don't make them your main character.
I know. And it's like, I kind of understand why they did that.
I mean, there are some static main characters.
But, like, it still annoys me. I think he would be more interesting if he wasn't static.
I'm pretty sure, like, every single Western protagonist, like in a Western movie,
probably.
Classic Western cowboy movies, is a static character. But they're also played by that Clint Eastwood, is that?
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood was a
Clint
jerk.
Eastwood guy.
Clint Eastwood was a huge jerk.
No, I haven't met him.
He was a really mean man.
So, Thomas Riley, he finds Timmy's journal. He's reading through it, perusing, and we've probably talked about this before, but it's really interesting to me that it's gone beyond the point of like oversight, and it's basically like they've made a point now of never saying the name of Tom's first wife. And it's always struck me as a really odd omission. And
wait, they've never said...
We have no idea the name of his first wife.
That doesn't sound right.
It is correct. I never really realized how glaring of an omission it is until I was writing Tom's lore, because I realized there is a lot of details were given about different stages of his life, different years that things happened and stuff. And we talk a lot about that period, especially with episodes like No Greater Love, where she is like just off mic. And Tom's like, oh, your mother and I make sure you come home for dinner, Timmy, and stuff like that. And oh, when my first wife died and stuff like that. And we get so much stuff. We even know Agnes's first husband's name, but we've never found out the name of Tom's first wife. And it really annoys me. And I don't know why that it's been at this point. They've given so much other information besides that that's way more detailed and obscure that it's like they're doing it on purpose.
Huh.
To spite me personally.
Even before you were born,
yeah.
You know, when you didn't exist, but this show did.
Yeah. So we cut, as you said, to Eugene and Katrina. They are having quite a heated argument. I really have to agree with Eugene personally in his conversation there, because an important job interview for your career is really not the the time and place to assert your expectations more forcefully about the job that you think that they should give you. Especially when they already said they're going to get back to you, like, tomorrow. That's not the time to be like, hey, I demand you give me a job right now. Look at everything I've done for you. That's not
this episode, though.
Sorry? That is in this episode.
No, like when he does it.
No, it's not. But this is the conversation that they're having. Katrina's like, you should remind him of all the things that you've done and demand that they give you a full-time job. I'm like, Katrina.
Okay, but what Eugene actually does, I'm like, Katrina, if you would totally be what I did if, like, I ever tried to do that. I'd be like, listen here, you. Listen, please, I'm really sad. I need this job. Please.
Honestly, I feel like we can see Katrina's, like, privilege in terms of class come through in this conversation, not just because the way that she talks about her dad and his multi-million-dollar contracts, as Eugene puts it, but just in terms of, like, the advantage she's had in, like, job searching, and probably especially in Chicago, where she probably could have, like, had, whether it was intentioned or not on her part, the weight of her father's name behind the places that she applied.
And now she's just normal person, like, she's just middle class because she had to use all of her inheritance to pay off of Eugene's decades of student loans.
Oh man, I just can't even imagine how in debt Eugene is.
I mean, Whit apparently pays him thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's fair.
And he probably's never had to pay for school before because he gets grants for everything.
Yeah. Sucking off the teat of the taxpayer, or whatever Armitage says.
Please never say that again.
Where was I?
Yeah, this is why Armitage isn't allowed in the show anymore. This is why they had to murder him.
Like,
he was too inappropriate.
Maybe if once Eugene gets denied for the interview, that is the time where he could assert his expectations a little bit more forcefully, but not at the opening stage when they're already being amicable towards you. It only goes downhill from there. Taking life advice from Armitage Shanks isn't something I would advocate in any arena. But there are some...
I mean, he has given good advice to Eugene before.
Yeah.
So I can't agree with that. I know you find this line funny, but I've never laughed at it until this morning when I listened to the episode.
I have a bunch of lines I'm about to quote, so...
yeah, this is probably like the number one on the list. When Eugene was like, name one time, and Katrina's like, okay! And he's like, wait.
Yeah, that's the second I was like, do you want other examples? Yes. No, not really.
And I love that they're talking over each other. She's like, oh, okay.
I like it, the great comedic timing in it is the fact that Katrina doesn't even get the chance to start speaking before Eugene changes his mind. Like, she literally opens her mouth. She's like, and he's like, no, you know what? Actually, not. Now that I think about it. My other thing I love here is it's like, there are times I can be assertive and dominant, such as, well, if a meteor were headed towards Earth.
Yeah,
any other examples? It's like real ones that actually happened. Yes, there's another a very relatable line.
What was I gonna say? I was gonna say a thing. I guess that now Audrey Wazalewski's probably played Katrina for longer than she's ever played by her original actress. So, like, hearing her original actress's voice, I was kind of like, huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she did used to sound like that.
Yeah.
Even though it's almost identical, but...
It's very similar, fairly. But, yeah, you can notice the difference. And, once again, as we talked about before, Jack and Joanne also have a tiff. I really like that we get to see that conflict here between them, because I think the only other time we get to see them like that is over the compass sail in Seeing Red, just prior to Joanne and Connie's road trip.
Yeah, but that hasn't happened yet. This was their first fight.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, in the whole course of the show, those are basically the only two times we get to see like conflict between them.
That's because they don't like it to argue in front of us.
No. They look at the microphone.
Like, literally anything happened. Literally anything. And I was just like driving and I was like, oh, I love Joanne so much. And Jack just like blinks. And I'm like, Jack, it is a blessing to all of us. And then It was like, Jack, is there anything you want to add? I've seen you before, haven't I? Oh, thanks, yeah. And they're like, I love you too so much.
Oh, yeah, that's good. But, like, yeah, Joanne's voice is so just, like, grand maternal and so comforting.
And Jack's, Alan Young's is too.
I know, but, like, we hear less
just, like,
of...
literally took a breath, and I was just like, I feel so peaceful. I realized Alan Young, his voice has the same effect on me that, like, Bob Ross's or Mr. Rogers does, where it's just like, you just make me peaceful and I can just do whatever and listen to this and it'll just calm me down. Like, I watched so much Bob Ross when I was in my grad year because I was so stressed out all the time in high school.
Oh, I thought you meant, like, this last year.
No, I haven't watched Bob Ross in a little while. Except for it's apparently on Netflix, unless they took it off. I don't know, they might have.
So, I've always found it really interesting how much Whit holds back from everyone else about what's going on until they, like, actively ask him about it. Like, I get why he didn't tell them about the angel thing in general, but once they all found out, they're like, did you know he claims to be an angel, Whit? Do you think he's an angel? And he's like, some things have happened that make me ... curious. But, like, what happened was much more compelling than he makes it sound. And when everyone else is laying out the timeline, he doesn't even mention Tom in any capacity. And later he's like, I wanted to respect Tom's privacy. But he, like, really understates everything that's happened. Like, he's intentionally trying to still keep on hiding as much as he can from them without outright lying to them. And I don't know. It has to be more than just respect for Tom's emotional boundaries with the Timmy stuff. Maybe he's trying to keep everyone from being too sensationalist about it. Like, he's had plenty of dealings with people freaking out prematurely over spiritual stuff before, between the healing cloak and the Jesus cloth and the Q document.
I don't know why he freaked out so much over the Actually, no. I don't know why he didn't freak out more over the Jesus cloth.
I told you. Because he already knew. He was like, I know Jesus' clothes. This doesn't smell like him, or whatever. He was already so intimately familiar with the clothing, with styles by Jesus, that he knew exactly what was and was not part of his fall spring 30 AD fashion line. So Whit has, on one hand, he's employing all of his skepticism. And then similarly, but distinctly different, we have Jason's approach. And beyond the general fact that he's so, like, suspicious and espionage about it, like, I really like how thorough the objectivity of his approach to it is. Like, obviously, we expect him to take this kind of approach because he's Jason, he's a suspicious man and a former spy, and he should be very well versed in this kind of thinking. But in a general sense, he did really well with, like, looking at the data set that seems to present one conclusion and ask, what are all of the other possible explanations here, ignoring arguments of plausibility? Like, they're like, how else could he have known unless he was an angel? And it's like, well, let's look at every possible thing, and then we can start, like, Xing out ones that can't have been, and figuring out what are some of the other possibilities, which is how he starts, like, lining up, like, oh, these things also make sense with a surveillance kind of thing. Although, granted, I really like how Jason believes that if a domestic or friendly foreign agency was conducting surveillance on him and his dad and close friends, that they would just tell him after he phoned them and asked them about it. Like, he's like, oh man, I phoned, like, the NSA and a bunch of other people in Homeland and asked if they were doing surveillance on me, and they said no, so I guess they're not. I don't know, guys. Good spying, Jason.
I mean, he's spying on them. That's how he knows they're not spying on him.
Yeah.
He has all his secret TVs that Whit doesn't look at because he's like, a TV! I'm going to subvert my eyes.
Yeah.
He doesn't know about any of the things that Jason watches and the fact that Jason has surveillance cameras everywhere because he's like, oh, Jason's watching TV. I shouldn't.
Well, Jason also needs all the TV so that he can watch, like, the Duchess Withholds or whatever it's called.
Yeah, and then Whit goes and, like, hides in his room and watches his soaps.
Yeah.
Which are the same soaps.
Yeah. And then they put on their welding masks. And then
it's the only soap opera that exists in the Odyssey universe.
Sorry?
And
what is?
I said the whatever it's called.
Actually, we know of at least 3 or 4 by name.
It's the only one that matters.
Young Stomachs Turning. I still love that joke. But yeah, Young Hearts Turning, Heartbreak Condominium, Hospital of Love, or whatever the one is in Soaplessly Devoted.
I was supposed to say the one that Jeff is in, and I was like, that's not Jeff.
That's Heartbreak Condominium is what you're thinking of, Chad Pearson.
The one in Soaplessly Devoted was the one I was trying to name.
You talked about before, Malachi is the man of Jack's dreams. I always forget that, like, Jack used to, like, have prophetic dreams on a regular occasion, and that was, like, a thing playing into a bunch of, like, different stories and stuff. But I really
did too. He said it, and I was just like, "Oh man, I missed that." I feel it only happened like twice.
I feel like they didn't really explore that past this point. But given that most of that stuff happened before, I really like that they brought that back in a way that it's not just like, "Oh, Jack had a dream that pertains to this thing," but Jack had specifically seen Malachi in his dreams before. Is a pretty cool way to tie that aspect of Jack's character back into the show in a very relevant way.
I wish. Like he got to that happened to him more than like twice, because it's just like the Blackguard Chronicles and this basically.
Well, it starts out with a code of honor and the Israelites.
Oh right, he has a dream about Billy,
and he has dreams about the tunnels, and then it's kind of related all the stuff at the monastery in like solitary refinement, and yeah, I would connect that with this general character thread as well. So there's a little bit there, but yeah. And then at the end, Tom's like, "I'm gonna make a center, but I have to talk to Margaret," and everyone's like, "Ugh, you have to talk to the mayor?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'll have to talk to
Whit jumps out the window tomorrow. Like it's Scott Pilgrim.
We'll
Margaret's like, "Jason, is Whit here?" He's like, "Actually, he just
Monty.
left."
Monty always jumping out the windows.
Yeah.
That's why Whit jumped through. The window was already broken because Monty and Jason were already there.
Yeah.
I'll talk about
good family supports each other by breaking the windows first, so you don't have to. That is family goals.
I'll talk about it more in part 3, but because we've never reviewed the one about trust before. I'm just so upset with how they treat Margaret as a character in general.
I don't know how to feel about how they treat Margaret. It could be a lot better.
When she first shows up, she's great. And it's like, obviously she does this thing at the end of the episode where they're like, "Hey, Margaret, like, stop it. Like, you're being unreasonable because you're taking a personal, emotional thing against Whit and applying it to other aspects of business. That's not fair." And she's like, "Okay, you're right. Cool." And then after this point, like, I will concede, yes, what she did in the one about trust was not excellent. I agree with the things that she espoused in general. It turned out that she was specifically incorrect about Whit in what she was trying to do. But after this point, it's like everyone just talks about her like she's the Wicked Witch of the West, very assumedly. Like, we just all assume now that, oh, she's heinous and horrible and she'll never let us do anything, like some kind of cool parent who hates all of her ideas.
It could be a lot better.
I don't know where it comes from. I really love Margaret Faye as a character, and I wish that the show appreciated her more. That's all I have to say about part 2.
I feel like I said the majority of what I had to say, and then just adding on to... I don't really have anything to counter in what you said that I haven't already countered. Yeah, it's good. We don't have to rate it yet.
It is good, and we don't have to rate it yet, which is always nice. It's always nice that we can procrastinate that as long as possible.
Yeah.
Thinking of numbers. All right, we got one more thing to talk about. And that is predictions for the next album, which is going to be starting imminently. I don't have a date last I checked, but it's supposed to be in July at some point, which is only a couple days away, when album 67 will start airing on the AIOC. So it's time to talk about those predictions as fast as we can. So let's talk about that right now then. So here we are for the last bit of our episode now to talk about album 67, More Than Meets the Eye.
And we're going to do these predictions in 11 minutes. I'm going to time us.
Okay. Why 11 minutes?
10 minutes.
Why?
3, 2, 1, go. Because it's 9:10. I want to see if we can finish by 9:20.
Okay, we still have more stuff to record after this.
Go.
More Than Meets the Eye. I'll read the album description, I guess. It's much shorter than the ones we have. I assume a longer one will be coming out later.
Sorry, I looked ahead in what it said.
Mystery and intrigue abound as Emily and Matthew are trapped inside an unfinished escape room in the basement of Whit's End. Meanwhile, the Odyssey High School football team heads towards the state championship and deals with unexpected challenges. That's it.
Boring.
That's the whole description.
Oh man. This better be 5 episodes about what the thing going on with, like, Maury is, and then 1 episode of filler, and that's it.
Uh-huh. Well, I mean,
to make up for the lack of Maury over
one
the
of the only things that it says
forever.
on the AIOO wiki page for this album is it will continue the Rydell saga, which is what it's being called now.
Ooh.
And Suzu is in the album art.
Oh, I want to see the album art.
Well, let's wait. Let's talk about the episodes.
You
titles.
can't do that.
We always do the art last.
Fine.
So, we have 6 episodes, of course, here. We only know about 2 of the episodes from the description, so we have a lot more unknowns than we usually do for the chronological
They better
albums.
all be about Maury.
First,
I just want Matthew and Emily to be trapped in the basement of Whit's End for, like, however long the album lasts, and no one notices until the last episode when they break out.
Well,
So they're down there for, like, months, just
here's the thing I want to know about.
And eating the clues in the escape room.
The first and most obvious thought that I have when I read the first half of the description, besides the fact that it's like, ooh, there's another, like, kind of modern thing that has made its way into Odyssey, is escape rooms. An unfinished escape room in the basement of Whit's End.
We've had escape rooms in Odyssey. We just call it captivity.
Yeah.
They just haven't called it that yet.
What are the chances, and this is kind of a rhetorical question because we know the answer is 100%, that this unfinished escape room in the basement is the room that Whit and Tom discovered with the skeleton that was shot with a bullet hole in the chest in it?
You mean the one from the episode called Escape Room?
Yes. That was what it was called, right? Yeah, like...
My favorite episode from album 2.
Like, the room that they're in is definitely probably the secret room, right? Where the guy got shot in album 2.
I mean, Snoopy's doghouse logic could be 50 more rooms that look identical to that room for all we know.
That's true.
With 50 new dead bodies.
Whit's End does have a spacious basement because, tunnels and stuff and whatnot.
Tunnels, because we should just answer that to every single question.
Just about Whit's End's architecture?
No, every single question about Odyssey, just the series. The answer is the tunnels under Whit's End.
I mean, I feel like the answer to every question about Odyssey is because Whit grew up with a magical cloth from Jesus that did magic and talked to him.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you win there.
Yeah.
Now he's part of a prophecy that Blackguard salivates over at night and keeps under his pillow and whispers to it lovingly like it's Gollum's ring.
Yes. So, the first episode in this album is called Rightly Dividing, which usually we can parse out something from, like, the titles usually
it's gonna be another school politics children episode.
Yeah.
Haven't gotten one of those in a couple
I wonder, is it,
albums.
like, about, like, a house divided? Is it about division of church and state? Is it about...
what I want it to be
about? Is it going to be math-related, maybe? And it's like a division pun?
You know what I want it to be about?
It's about divorce, perhaps.
I want it to be about Maury tearing Matthew and Emily apart.
Oh. I thought you were going to say about Maury chopping people up in his basement.
What is wrong with you?
But yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah!
An emotional wedge.
You and I are in very different trains of thought, apparently.
Yes.
Man of the house. This one's about Maury. This is what he calls himself in private. Page from the playbook. This is just... Yeah, that's just Maury. This is Maury's mind palace. It's what you'd expect. It's just straight up...
Page from the playbook is
word
hopefully...
for word.
It could be a Maury episode. The most obvious answer is it's sports. I hope it's not sports. I hope it's Maury. It's definitely not Maury and sports. I know that
Page
much
from the playbook is the longest Odyssey episode ever. It is word for word. Every single, like, just none of the names are changed, but it's all like, all of it's said by Maury. It's just every single episode of BBC Sherlock. Non-stop. Until the series is over. Which is like, I think about 10 episodes or something. I don't know. I stopped
Probably
watching.
more.
It's more. Page from the playbook is definitely not the episode about basketball.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a sports thing. Yeah.
I thought you were... I was hoping you were joking before, but I figured you weren't.
I forgot about the sports. I always forget about the sports.
A Sacrificial Escape probably
the escape room.
Isn't the escape room episode. Nightmares by Constance.
The thing about A Sacrificial Escape is that is Matthew gonna have to, like, is it like Saw? Did Whit create Saw in the basement and Matthew's gonna have to, like, cut off his leg, bite off his own leg so that Emily can get out of the basement?
Okay. The thing about Saw is that the guy who is Jigsaw actually dies in the third movie.
Yes, I'm aware.
And then they Kingdom Hearts it by basically being like, oh, everything in the next 4 movies was actually planned and guessed ahead by him. And he gained different apprentices and just trained them to do different things. And the only way to stop him
is to find the box somewhere in his house.
He's been dead this whole time. But these, like, 50 betrayals 4 movies later, and these random things that never should have happened, he knew exactly that all those things were going to happen before he died 10 years ago. And yeah, there's no supernatural stuff in the Saw movies because he's just smart, and that's how normal people's smarts work.
That actually is a lot like Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, I know. I don't like it. Nightmares by Constance, calling it now. This is the fated Wellington-Connie team-up I've been waiting for ever since
Wellington
and
does
Penny's wedding.
Wellington needs a new business partner in Odyssey. He, through a typo, a very, like, kimpossible.com, impossible.com kind of accident, ends up merging his business with Connie.
Oh, that's better than what I was going to say, actually.
And the natural combination of their businesses results in a funeral planning service.
That's so good.
And nothing is a more tranquil name for a funeral planning service than Nightmares by Constance.
I like to think that this episode... what my original prediction was, because yours is very good. What mine is, and will probably
I did
be the
mostly
right thing,
steal yours, to be fair.
Because I'm always right about what happens when it comes to Wellington. I've never been wrong, because I know my boy, because I'm the #1 fan.
And also because Kathy just does the things that you say after she hears you say them on this YouTube channel.
Because Kathy likes me. So, Nightmares by Constance, which, can you look up if Kathy wrote this one real quick?
I don't think, if it's on there, I don't think that I need to check, Victoria. I'm pretty confident that Kathy will write this episode.
Okay, good. I'm going to be right about everything I'm about to say then. This is great. So, Connie gets sick, and she's supposed to plan a wedding. And she can't. Someone
has to take over, but the only person available...
But everyone's really busy. The only person who can help is Wellington.
Obviously.
So he has to plan a wedding all on his own, and it doesn't go well. But it actually goes a bit better than everyone thought. Everyone learns a lesson along the way.
One of them's the messy one. One is the neat one. And then is this going to be like a rom-com where it ends up in the end that they fall in love and they're the ones who get married at the end of the episode?
Connie and Wellington?
Yeah. Because that's
Wellington's married.
This sounds like a very, well,
I don't ship Connie and Wellington.
He has a child.
He's
never talked about a spouse before.
That's true. I do think about that a lot. It means I can marry Wellington. I think about it every day. Trust me. Your face. I have goals that I make for myself that I believe I can attain.
Some of them involve finishing fanfics by the end of certain years, and some of them involve marrying Wooten's identical twin brother.
He's beautiful. I love him so much. He's important to me. Okay. But I was gonna say, maybe Wooten has to help at some point. Maybe Penny has to help. Our 10 minutes are up. We got through the entire album. Now time to look at the fan art.
It's like, obviously, the most obvious thing with, like, Nightmares by Constance is, oh, Connie plans a wedding, but everything goes wrong. But we've done that multiple times before, so I feel like it has to be something drastically higher echelon than that. It has to be something of a much higher echelon of chaos than that.
It has to be Wellington. It's the only answer.
Connie's had this business since album 27. This is the first time they're using that title after all the weddings that she's planned. I hope that means they've been saving this title up for something good.
This means it's gonna go worse.
It's a two-parter finale, too.
The bride and groom going missing, then the bride being so grievously injured that, like, she ends up in the hospital right before the wedding. They lose every single employee.
That the pastor also ends up in the hospital.
Sick animals that were supposed to be a part of the wedding. Missing dresses.
Missing
literally
rings.
Everything going wrong.
Missing brides and grooms.
Yeah, I already said that.
That you end up marrying the wrong people who just showed up and decided to renew their vows instead.
It's gonna be worse than all that. My expectations are so high.
That you rebrand your business by sending out, like, a mass virus to everyone on your contact list that tells you that you're marrying Wooten.
How about this?
That then,
Connie
like, brings your ex back to town.
Connie accidentally ends up on the stage, accidentally marries the person on the stage. She marries Eugene. One of the people who is going to get married to someone else, and it's about divorce. This is the real episode about divorce in the album, because Connie's just married to this random person.
That would be probably the worst way a wedding could turn out.
Yeah.
Is the wedding planner accidentally legally marries one of the people who's supposed to get married.
I'm pretty sure that's the plot of, like, 12 different movies with Jennifer... What's her face?
Lawrence. Jennifer Aniston.
With Jennifer Lawrence. Like, 12 different rom-coms with Jennifer Lawrence have that plot. Okay.
I thought it was going to be Jennifer Aniston that you were talking about.
Oh, it was Jennifer Lawrence. Emily... All's...
The art.
We
got Suzu.
To lead to a good... road?
All tops lead to a good end? All stops.
All twos. It looks like twos to me. It could be tops. Lead to a good... Rand.
It's a Iron Fist season 3 tease.
Okay, Devin, we have to figure out this clue.
The escape room is real. It's an ARG, Victoria, and now we are in the escape room, and we have to solve it based on this picture.
If you die in the escape room, you die in real life. I found out what that is from. It's from the original subs of Fate Stay Night, which I'm watching the Netflix version of currently, like the updated reboot version that doesn't have that quote in it.
At the bottom of this picture in the right-hand corner, is that...
Oh, wait, no, the quote I'm thinking of is people who die who are killed. That's from Fate Stay Night, which is also a very good quote.
Is that a telescope objective lens trapped inside a massive soap bubble?
Yeah.
A microscope might make more sense, perhaps, but who knows? There's some radiator coils in the background, some kind of radio-like apparatus.
That could be a bong, actually.
It could be a bong.
The top of a bong.
One of you, that's the sacrificial escape. One of you has to get really, really high to figure out the solution. Maybe that's how Emily fogged up this mirror. The only way to do it was with bong smoke.
Those words weren't there before. Look at Matthew's eyes. Those are half-lit.
You guys seemed awful dilated in there. That's why Whit is trying to open the door, because he can see
the children.
He can see the smoke coming out of the door, and he knows they're hotboxing themselves in there.
Whenever I see a shot like this in like anything where it's like clearly 2 rooms, but it just like cuts off the wall so you can see both rooms.
It does look like the door is just open.
Yeah, I always think of Doctor Strange. Or not Doctor Strange. What am I talking about? Doctor Horrible. When they're singing My Eyes. They're like both against the wall and they're like, I can't believe my eyes, and then you can see both of them at the same time.
I was thinking of whatever that Nostalgia Critic review was, the movie where they kept on like doing the back and forth through the door to the different characters, but it just kept on going back and forth until it was like 12 times over the course of the scene.
That wasn't NC. That was theater mode.
Yes, you're correct.
Yep.
Good memory.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is our first look at Suzu as a character. She
looks like she's wearing a uniform.
Oh, it's a crowbar that Whit has. First off, I
didn't see that Suzu was holding on to something. I thought she was just making angry fists at the door and trying to punch it open. And like, she is powerful and I love her and she totally could punch that door open.
She could be a telepath.
She could be.
Like,
she's pretty
is
great.
She holding on to something? It's very hard to tell. It's very blurry. It looks more like wiggle, like motion blur.
No, she is. She's holding on to something.
It looks more like motion blur than a solid object. Honestly, I thought Whit was holding onto a door handle, not a crowbar, and I couldn't figure out why there was a door handle attached to the other door handle to this safe vault door that he installed in the basement for some reason. Maybe just for the escape room. How did he even get it down there? Oh, wait, we know the answer to that. Tunnels.
They answered all the questions.
Yeah, you were right.
It's tunnels. I told you. Why do you question me when I'm always right when it comes to Odyssey?
With his pose, he kind of looks like he's doing like a Chuck Berry rocking out on this massive whammy bar that he's holding.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's doing like a duck walk.
Matthew looks so tired. Honestly, this is how I imagine him looking.
Exhausted.
This is how I imagine him looking whenever he spends any time around Emily. He's constantly really tired. That was what I looked like when I listened to early Emily episodes, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's all that we're going to get out of this image. It's also interesting how laser-focused Suzu's vision is forward when she's just looking at the door. If she's trying that hard, you'd think her eyes would be scrunched up like Whit's are.
Over 2 hours still hurts me when I see it.
Sorry?
The over 2 hours in the corner still hurts me whenever I look at it. I feel physical pain in my chest.
Yes.
Stories on trust, sacrifice, and forgiveness. Matthew is not coming out of that room. He's gonna die.
Yeah.
Wellington's
I told you. It's Saw.
Wellington's gonna lose his business because of the merge with Connie, which is his sacrifice. And Connie's going to get married to someone she doesn't know. That's her sacrifice. It's an accident. And they're really going to need to forgive her after that.
6 stories on sacrifice, sacrifice, and sacrifice.
No, it's 6 stories on trust, sacrifice, 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 and forgiveness.
No, it's 6 stories on trust, sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. Tom Jones's It's Not Unusual. Sacrifice, sacrifice, and sacrifice.
Oh my gosh, I was telling...
okay, that's the end of the predictions.
I was telling someone about Riley's 16th birthday party. Because I was mentioning I'm going to turn 22 in a couple days. And I was asked, like, oh, are you going to listen to 22 on repeat? I was like, I have a friend who turned 16 and was just constantly looping Dancing Queen in basically the same way that the Salt and Pepper Diner looped What's New Pussycat. But the thing is, we hadn't ever heard that audio in that point, so we did it to ourselves.
Had we not at that point? I feel like we had.
Nope, we hadn't.
Anyways, that's the end of this episode. Methinks.
That would have been like 7 years ago. And I hadn't heard John Mulaney stuff until like 4 years ago.
Okay. So that's the end of this episode, Victoria. We did it. What are we talking about next time? We already revealed it on last episode.
So it's lore.
Yes. We did it way back when. What episode was that? Let me check. In iTunes and all the bajillions of episodes. It was very early on because it was episode 15 of the Oddcast. That was in like 2013, I guess, probably. Yeah, that would have been 2013 that came out. That's a long time ago. That's 6 years. Man, let's just all take a moment to pause at the end of this long video and just reflect on the passage of time. No, yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't listening at all.
Whit's lore has had a lot more added to it in the last 6 years, a shocking amount, in point of fact. It is much longer than it was when we first recorded it.
Can I just say an unfortunate amount?
At long last,
if I dare be so bold.
There's still more to come. Between the audio series and more Whit's lore books, Young Whit books coming out, there's definitely more to come. But after we did Young Whit's book and 2, it felt like this was finally a good point, because there's always going to be more coming out. It felt like this was finally a good point to say, yes, we're doing an updated version of that episode. So it's basically going to be the original one, but with like twice as much words now. So that's what we're doing next time. Until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
I'm like really tired.
And you've been watching episode 168 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.